All right. Good morning, everyone. This is JJ Arisha with Pismo Ventures, and I have with me Quan Nguyen from NTIP. I will let Quan introduce himself in a second, but just an update on this is on the Pismo Ventures Startup Symposium. Um, so we have had a lot of companies this year for the B2X, which is business to anything symposium. Um, Business to business, business to consumer, business to government, etc. Um, we had 182 companies. We selected the last week 10 companies that will be presenting on Thursday this week. I hope all of you will be part of this so you're able to see the companies that are presenting and the investors and their feedback as well. Um, Today is Education Day, that's what we call it. And so we have two webinars and one expert panel. Quan is leading the first webinar, and then he will be also moderating the expert panel, which is coming up right after this one. Also, we have Ken August, also an attorney, but corporate attorney, not a patent attorney, who will be discussing the mistakes that should not be made by startups. Um, uh, you can ask questions along the way, and also we'll have time for questions towards the end as well. Quan, please take it from here.
JJ, thank you so much for having me. It is always a pleasure to be participating in the Pismo Ventures Symposium. I think this is our third year running now, and it's always great with the questions coming in and everything. So thank you. So my name is Quan Nguyen. I'm with Nguyen Tarbit Patent Law, and so Nguyen Tarbit. It's easier to just say NT, and then IP is NTIP. So NTIP. There we are. NTIP. I've been in practice for about 25 years, practicing primarily in the patent world. Our firm, we do trademark and copyright as well as trade secret. So patent, trademark, copyright, trade secret. That is effectively the world of IP, intellectual property, not PI. PI is personal injury. It's IP, the other way around. Okay. All right. So just also briefly, our company, our firm, represents a spectrum of a span of companies and clients. We have publicly traded companies to mid-cap companies and revenue of about $50 million a year, to startups and universities as well. So we love them all, and it's fun to be in each of those industries. As JJ mentioned, at 10 a.m. Pacific time, we will have an expert panel discussing becoming an investable company. That's where
10:30.
you see the broad 10:30 Pacific Standard Time.
Yeah.
That's where you see the broad discussion of other factors that are required in becoming an investable company. In this particular segment, we're going to talk about IP and IP readiness for investors. Okay. Although I can go on and on for days talking about this nonstop filibuster, practically, I want you to stop me where you have questions and things like that. So it'll be more fun, and it'll be more engaging as well. So questions are welcome at any time at all. All right. So let me start out with why it is that investors are keen about IP. They're keen about IP because, for the
Just
most
a
part,
quick
startups
note,
at the
quick note, sorry. For questions, please post your questions in the Q&A section, not in the chat, so we're able to moderate that. Sorry. Sorry, Quan.
oh, all good, all good. All right. So the investors are keen on IP because, as I was saying at the very beginning, when startups first start out, there is really nothing. There's really nothing. It's an idea, it's a concept, it's passion, it's a want to be somewhere. There's no inventory for the most part. There's no customer for the most part. Effectively, not much. So because of that, the IP stands for the bigger chunk of the business valuation. In fact, at the very early stage, IP, JJ, is the video okay? Can you hear me?
Video's fine, everything's fine, and
Okay.
since you stopped for a second, there are. Do you want me to stop you for questions when they come up, or you want to moderate the questions on your
Yes.
screen?
Stop me in my track. Just say, stop, we have a question, and I'll stop. If I keep on talking, scream a little louder. All right.
Go ahead. Yes.
So, okay. IP make up a large portion of the company's valuation again because there's not much there, and so IP is what it is. And so why is it important that they look at IP to evaluate the company to begin with? Well, that's because IP basically is a well, it's a monopoly and it's a legal monopoly. I think check me if I'm not saying this right, but I'm pretty sure it's the only form of monopoly left in the United States. It's as a government-backed monopoly. And why is that important? That's important because when a company has a technology to make something, wouldn't it be nice if they're the only one who can make that and sell that? And so a patent would allow that company to monopolize that and prevent other people from making that same product, right? So then, right, that goes to the next question is, do I need a patent to make my product? A lot of people ask that question, and the answer is no. You don't need a patent for anything. You can just do whatever you want to do, assuming that it's not FDA regulated and other things, other regulatories that would kick in. Okay, you don't need a patent to make anything. The only reason you need a patent, basically, is to prevent other people from making and selling what you are doing. And that's why investors are interested in that because they want to have the bulk of the market as much as possible so that they can have as much sales as much as possible effectively. Okay, so as I was saying, there are four types of IP. There's the patent, the trademark, the copyright, and the trade secret. For the bulk of this webinar, I will speak about patents because that's, for the most part, that's the most important IP for startups in the technology space. The trademark I'll speak first, and the copyright I'll speak to it a little bit, and I'll speak to the trade secret as well. So let me just take care of those first, and then we'll go straight to the patent part. Okay. So for trademarking is basically capturing a brand, capturing a brand that you want the public to know that it's your source. Coca-Cola, famous one, right? When you buy a Coca-Cola, you know that it's from that company and the goodwill that comes along with Coca-Cola from that company. If you go travel somewhere, you see a McDonald's, you'd rather stop by a McDonald's rather than some place out in the travel journey because you don't know the quality of that other place. You've never been there. So you go to McDonald's for the safety, the goodwill that is there. So trademark is important to protect your brand. I would say that in terms of priority and spending your money, do the patent first and the trademark later. The trademark, the good thing about it is that there's no time bar in submitting for a registration with the USPTO. With a trademark, the longer you're out there using it, the better position you are when you file for securing it with the USPTO. Okay, so for trademark, what you want to do is to build your brand as much as possible. And especially this is a B2X webinar. I suspect that there's a lot of consumer products out there. And consumer products, if you're going to be putting up Amazon and so on and so forth, it is important for you to have a trademark. And it is also important for you to have a registered trademark because if you just have a trademark, general common law right trademark, you can't really enforce it on Amazon and eBay and so much. So a trademark then again is the protecting of your brand. And the protecting of your brand can go in many, many forms. It could be in the logo, the Nike swoosh, the Coca-Cola brand, Apple, for example, Apple, iTunes, and so on and so forth. They're all trademark protected. Now, the trademark spans further and deeper beyond the brands and the logos that you see. Trademark could be, for example, a golf ball that has a smell of grass. That's trademarked because it's a brand. It's something that's unique. That's something that the consumer can relate to. Okay, so if you have something that's unique in terms of sensory, sensory, you can actually trademark that as well. Or it could be the NBC tune. You know, they have the peacock spreading its tail, and then there's a 3-note tune, bum bum bum. That is trademarked as well. Or the color. So we went from olfactory to auditory to color, visual. You have the UPS trucks. UPS trucks are brown. There is a trademark on the brown color for mail delivery. Okay, so you can leverage that for your business and have monopoly on the brand that you're presenting to the world. And there's also one very cool thing. It's if you guys are in the restaurant business, uh, this is the Apple, okay, the Apple company. They have a very unique layout of their store. If you walk in there, there's the Genius bar in the back. There are the tables, stretched long white tables stretching down. It's just very nicely and uniquely arranged. And that presentation is a trade dress, or it's a trademark, but you know, to get more technical, it's a trade dress. And Apple has filed for and obtained a trademark on that presentation, just the whole look and feel of the store. And you can look it up and type in Google Apple Store interior design trade dress trademark. Okay, you'll see that. So trademark is pretty expensive, and you can leverage it to again monopolize your space. And again, that's what the investors want. Okay, so that's the trademark area. Oh, another thing. So I mentioned that in filing for trademark, you can delay until you're ready, and the longer you're out there using your brand, the better you are in a position to file for the trademark and having it accepted by the USPTO. Well, why is that? Well, it's because trademarks are granted on the premise that you have made your brand distinct, and you can't become distinct unless you've actually used it. And the longer you use it, like wine, it just becomes more distinct, well known. Okay. There's also the common law trademark. So there are two types of trademark rights. There's the USPTO, United States Trademark Office. They grant you a registration for a trademark, and that's nationwide, all 50 states. That's why it's a federal trademark. Then there's a common law right in which when you self-anoint yourself as the owner of this thing by branding it, by selling it, by advertising it, and so on and so forth. When you do that, you self-anoint yourself as the common law right owner of this trademark. That works too, but it's difficult to enforce. Let's say you have your product on Amazon, and when you make a lot of money, and when the product is very, very popular, other companies or other fake companies are going to grab your name and grab the name of your product, and they're going to pretend that they're you. They're going to pretend that they are selling your product and that they are you. So you're going to see that because that's just how the world works, and you're going to want to do a takedown. When you do that takedown, you just can't tell Amazon or eBay or anybody, one of those platforms, that you have this first, and so on and so forth. The cleanest way to do it is to show them a registration from the United States Trademark Patent Office, right? USPTO registration. Here it is, and very quickly, the Amazons of the world will take down the bad guys for you. So that's why it's important at some point to register it for the trademark. And again, that is if you have a consumer tech product. Now, if you're in the in a very esoteric space like medical device or anything like that, where you just sell to a very small group of buyers, it's not that critical because everybody knows everybody, and your brand is not gonna be confused with a mass public out there. So then again, look at your business model and who your customers are, and conserve your cash accordingly, and sell and register for trademarks only if it is one of these mass public consumption. JJ, do we have a question or something? You good?
We do.
Okay.
So the question is, do we really need to trademark our logo? What is the value, and is it required?
Yeah. Nothing is ever required. You do it effectively. You do it effectively to protect your brand, to say that I own this and nobody else gets to use this. So if you go to foreign countries, you'll see a lot of fake McDonald's. You'll see a lot of fake Kentucky Fried Chicken, and so on and so forth. They have registrations, and so they're able to take down those fake people. So it is not required. And logo, you're not required to do that at all. Again, but the Mickey Mouse, for example, it's trademark copyrighted and everything. Anything that looks like a Mickey head, with a round center and two round things that come out with an ear, that's trademarked, right? So that's the logo. And also same thing with the swoosh, like that, like a check. Do they have to? No. Why? They they the reason that they register is to basically have that goodwill so that people can feel good about buying it, that it's from a legit company. That's basically about it. Okay. So on that note, I want to transition to just talk about the foreign rights of trademark. All IP rights, whether it be patent, trademark, copyright, or trade secret, they're jurisdictional, meaning that they're within that region only. So when you file it with the United States Trademark Patent Office, USPTO, with your trademark, you have protection within the boundaries of the United States, right? So let's say that I'll just say McDonald's. If McDonald's only has it within the boundaries of the United States, if someone over in Mexico or Canada begin to use McDonald's, the McDonald company cannot stop it because they don't have filing there. If they want protections in those jurisdictions, Canada, Mexico, Argentina, wherever it is, then they would need to file there. And there is a mechanism to do it cheaply. There are two ways to do it. One is to do it the traditional way, in which you hire a law firm in that particular jurisdiction, Argentina, Mexico, wherever. You hire a law firm in that jurisdiction to file a trademark for you there, or you can go through what's called a Madrid protocol. Madrid, Spain, protocol. That is like a centralized one-stop shop in which you can designate the countries that you want to go into, and it's a lot more clean for you to be able to protect the multiple countries, and it's a lot cheaper as well. All right. With no other questions, I'm going to move on to speak a little bit about copyright.
There's
copyright.
One more on
Let's do it.
Yes. So, so
Let's
the question it says, is AI and ML that's being used by everyone, are utility patents being made for this yet? And what determines the cost?
Sure. Okay. So let me talk about, so that's a question more for patents as opposed to trademark. Want to make sure everyone
is more of a patent question.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, sorry.
That's fine.
My
so
bad.
Let me make sure. No. I'm glad that you bring it. So so there are bins. There's the patent bin, the trademark bin, copyright bin, and the trade secret bin. The machine learning, by the way, everybody claims to have some sort of AI these days. Some are more robust than others, but it's very pervasive, and it's accessible to many. And I'm glad that the systems are out there to democratize the innovation space. You can, it's easy enough and accessible enough to use that a lot of people can actually get their hands on these things. So for AI, with particular to that, there's Chat GPT. Okay, so Chat GPT, you look at it, and there's the ML that's behind that. That's the deep learning that's behind that. But Chat GPT, the brand itself, is trademarked. Chat GPT. Okay, that is trademarked. Just the brand, the static brand. It doesn't do anything. It's a brand. So you can imagine that that there's if there's anybody that is going to advertise themselves as Chat GPT 4 or 3 or whatever it is, they're going to get a cease and desist letter from the company. Well, from probably Elon Musk himself, to come down and say, stop it, you can't do that because we own this, and if you continue to use it, consequences will happen. Usually what are the consequences? They first start out with things like a cease and desist. That's what it's called, cease and desist. Don't use our brand anymore. And if you shut that down, for the most part, they're cool. There's always a stance, beating of the chest and saying, you owe us $1 gazillion because you use this. Well, the thing is, damages are hard to come by, because if it's just starting out, if the copycat is just starting out, number one, you just want to shut them down, that they don't use it anymore. But going after damages of them paying you for whatever it is, it's very hard. because you got to show that they make, let's say, if they make $100,000, you probably get $4,000, if that, because it's a licensing fee calculation type of thing. There are many models to do it, but effectively, you want to look at the numbers. That's probably what it is. If they make $100,000, they're going to have to cough up about $4,000 for you. And the legal fees to get that $4,000 is going to run you $10,000, $15,000. Is it worth it? No, not really. So for trademark infringement and takedown, stuff like that, it's basically stop it, don't do it anymore, and you go on. Okay. Okay, so I think going back to machine learning, things like that. So you look at ChatGPT, and then there's the engine, the LLMs that run the ChatGPT. Those things, I'm pretty sure they're patented somewhere, and then it's a trade secret as well. So that's not a trademark issue. It's actually got some copyright, some trade secret, maybe some patent that is associated with the technology that runs it. Trademark, just a brand. Okay, if there's no questions, I'll glide over to copyright and speak a little bit about that. Okay, ready? JJ, good to go? Copyright?
You're good. Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about copyright. So copyright is a creative expression of something. Unlike trademark is the recognition of that goods, that service, like a swoosh, like a Coca-Cola, with that company that that makes that, the goodwill that comes along with that. That's trademark. Copyright is basically a creative expression that's been fixed to a media. All right. So let's take it back to the
I guess we lost Quan. We will get him back in a second, I'm sure. He's been here he is. So he's coming right back.
I apologize. Okay.
Yeah,
So guys, I do apologize. I'm at the dock somewhere in Mexico right now, and it's I think we just landed here, so that's why the internet just flickered a little bit. But I'm back, guys. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so let's get to the copyright of this thing, ChatGPT. There's a lot of code, and you can copyright the code, pages and pages of it. And when you do it, by the way, the way you do it is you don't you kind of want to hide the ball a little bit with your copyright. Historically, what people do is they would fold the page diagonally across, so you can see part of the code, but not all of the code. Pretty clever, huh? So that's how they do it. So you have enough showing that you can copyright it, but not enough to actually for people to wholesale copy it and use it. So you can copyright codes, but the thing with copywriting code is it doesn't really provide that much of protection, because as you know, so many languages that can get from point A to point B in terms of functionality of what you want to do. So there's Python, there's C++, there's so on and so forth. There's just so many languages that can get you there. So for the most part, technology companies don't really copyright codes. The copywriting is typically done in the entertainment world quite a bit.
Oh, we lost him again. He'll be back. Okay, we got you back now.
All right. Okay. So I'm getting set up for another backup system just in case it goes out again. I sincerely apologize, guys. I'm getting ready for another system to get working here. Okay. All right. So for the code, you don't get that much protection because for the most part, it can be designed around. Okay. So can you hear me okay, guys?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Yeah.
Okay. The protection can be designed around because in this technology world, you want to go from point A to point B, and what is ever in between, the meat of it and the secret sauce and the sausage making, things like that. If it's something that is pretty locked down that you can't design around, then it's valuable. But for copyright of a a series of codes, it is so easy to design around and to rewrite it in a way that you can't really have any meaningful protection. So copyright is important in the world of entertainment. So you have the Star Wars series, that's copyrighted, the characters and things like that, because that's a presentation that people again recognize. Mickey Mouse, that's also copyrighted. The storyline of J.K. Rowling's and so on and so forth. So that's copyrighted stuff. The other important thing that could be copyrighted for what's important for your particular purpose here in business is the design of your web page. You can do that. You can, if you have a particular design of your web page, you can do a trademark of it, or you can have a copyright. So the success of the Airbnb. All right, Airbnb. I don't know if you guys actually know the story of it, but it was a crazy idea. And who's going to let strangers go into their house? So it lived to die another day so many times, and it almost went out of business again so many times. But what saved it was the particular design, the inviting design of their website, and that warm, cozy, fuzzy feeling that the people, the public got, so they can actually begin to trust this, and the house owners begin to feel comfortable with this. Was basically from the copywriting or the website that they have, and you can copyright something like that. So that's the use of copyright coming in, music and so on and so forth, right? That's copyright as well. So now some interesting note on copyright. I now have a hobby of YouTubing, surfing, and looking for music. The old, long forgotten music, Mama and Papas, and so on and so forth. For those of you who recognize that, and then I found Frank Sinatra singing Michael Jackson's Thriller. That's odd. That's I've seen some crossovers, but this is really odd. It's Frank Sinatra singing Michael Jackson, and then I found a whole bunch of other very acing very off timing connections as well. And so what it is that these YouTube videos of music are generated by AI, and that's so very easy to do these days, where you get a sampling of a singer's voice, and then you allow it to sing whatever song that you put in. So that's AI. Now in the copyright world, we cannot, at least in the United States, we cannot copyright the voice. You cannot copyright Frank Sinatra's voice. You cannot copyright Michael Jackson's voice. You can copyright the songs, things like that, but not the voice. So with AI these days, pushing that frontier, it's actually an issue, and people are still trying to resolve that. But I can tell you one case law that is really interesting, and it involves a photographer and a monkey. So some of you may know this. Photographer went to a zoo, forgot his camera, lost his camera, and a monkey took a selfie. It's a really cute selfie. You should look it up on Google. A selfie by a monkey with this camera. Okay, so then, what's who owns that now? This whole ownership thing. So the photographer found his camera, got the photo, and basically put it on his website. And before he knows it, it was copied. It was on T-shirt. It was on everybody's website and everything like that. And he said, "Wait a minute! That's my picture. That's my camera. I own that. Nobody should use this. I have the monopoly to this." I went all the way up. I don't know how far it went, but all the way up the food chain of the court system. And the court effectively said, "You know what, photographer? Sorry, you can't be the owner of this because you did not click that camera. You did not hit the click, take a photography on that camera, a photograph on that camera. And because he didn't click it, the monkey clicked it. Well, the monkey's the owner. But the thing is, monkeys or animals don't have rights to copyright. There's a lot of amicus briefs that are written in to say that you should create a trust for all the money. The monkey should own this photograph of his selfie, All the money that should be collected in a trust to be used for that monkey and all of its children. But that never got through. So that's an open area right now. Very interesting area, but that's the use of copyright. Okay, so trade secret. Going back to the story of ChatGPT again. The code, the way that people generate certain functions and things like that. In IP, remember this. When you draft any IP, whether it's a patent, a trademark, a copyright, whatever it is, you need traceability. The important thing is that you want to have the ability to see whether the bad guys, the competitor, are copying your thing or not, whether it be a patent, a copyright, whatever it is. So a lot of times in the software world, when you generate a code, it's very difficult to tell whether the competitor is using your same code or, you can't tell, you can't see it unless you run some reverse programs or actually have access to it. You can't see, and because you can't see what it is, you can't enforce. So companies, especially in the software industry, in the artificial intelligence world these days, they opt to do trade secret, meaning that they don't divulge to the world, whether through copyright or patenting. They don't divulge to the world what their technology is. They keep it a trade secret, and nobody gets to see it. Okay. Now, trade secret is good. Trade secret, the term of the trade secret is pretty much forever. Coca-Cola has been a trade secret forever. Same with Kentucky Fried Chicken and so on and so forth. It's a forever thing, right? The risky part of it, though, is that if it somehow is breached to the world for the world to see, that's the end of it. You have no recourse. If it's blasted on the internet, your secret Coca-Cola formula, your Kentucky Fried Chicken, your code, whatever it is that's blasted on the internet, that's it. That's the end of it. That's a shutdown for any company that loses that trade secret. So from there, you can see that it's really, really important to maintain the secrecy of it. You have to make sure that only certain employees have access, and so on and so forth. And not only that, let's say that someone at the company misappropriates, as they would call it, or let's say that there's a spy or an industry spy that comes in and steals your secret, your trade secret. Let's say you catch that industrial spy red-handed, and say, then you file a lawsuit and so on and so forth. And there are many levels of this. There's the criminal level and there's the civil level, and that you can go after. Let's say that you file the lawsuit, or you report it to the district attorney general. The first defense of the bad guy is you have no trade secret, and the reason is, in order for you or anybody to acquire a trade secret, you have to establish all the requirements for trade secret, meaning you have to have a reasonable care of keeping it secret. For example, over at KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, they require 2 keys, locks and everything to access. And one person has 1 key, another person has another key. So these are the steps that you would have to engage in to establish that you have a trade secret. So that's the first defense. The bad guy is going to say, you have no trade secret, and therefore they're going to say, well, you left it out in the open and anybody can grab it and so on and so forth. Fair game, right? And you're going to have to counter that and say, well, actually, no, we do have restrictions. We do have these safety measures in place to qualify for trade secret. All right. Okay. So by the way, trade secret is a state-by-state jurisdiction requirement. Different states have different requirements, but for the most part, it's the care of maintaining the secret. All right. Any questions, JJ, before I go on to patents?
Yes, we do have a question, and the question is, we are a hardware software technology company, recently filed a hardware application and received accelerated review and office action through the USPTO's Climate Change Mitigation Program. Preparing now to submit a second application for the control of monitoring systems, which includes AI, ML, and algorithms to control our system. what suggestions do you have for the second application? What venue should we use to protect the software side trade secret? Loaded
Sure.
question for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, lots of good. Perfect segue into the patent world. JJ, I just saw an email from Charlie, our expert panelist. You want to reply to him? I think he's waiting to be let into this one. I think um,
I will do
is
that.
1 hour. Yeah, you okay? Okay, all right. So let's get to the patent world. I'll answer the audience question first, and I'll back up into filling in some of the more substantive matters on patent altogether. Artificial intelligence is a big deal these days. Everything is touched on by artificial intelligence, and filing. I can tell you that filing and securing patents for software in general is hard enough because the patent offices around the world, especially the United States, deem it to be an abstract system in which, like a math equation, you cannot patent a math equation. However, if you reduce it down to a system with RAMs and ROMs and parts, you can patent it. Now, the added layer, the added complexity of patenting artificial systems is that, well, if you're going to do deep learning, there are many systems, right? There's the symbolic AI, there's the neural network AI, there's the Darwinism type of AI, which is genetic AI type of thing. So what you want to do, bottom line, is to present to the patent office that you have a system. So moving away from this whole software thing or trying to establish that you have a concrete widget somehow. And I understand that AI is all algorithms, things like that, but there is a technique in which you set it into the hardware type of language and allowing it to be considered more for patenting as opposed to more of a mathematical algorithm type of thing. Well, first of all, congratulations, and you did the right thing. I am a big proponent of accelerated examination because, especially for startups, one of the things that investors ask a lot is your invention patentable, right? And when you file a patent application, it's going to take about 2 years to hear back from it. It takes forever. And all the meanwhile, you have to field the question and defend off the investors of whether it is or is not patentable. But if you do an accelerated track, you have the answer within about 6 to 10 months or so on a resolution. And for the most part, if you do it right, you can get favorable result and get a patent. And so you can just show the investor, our technology is patentable because look, I have a patent. I'm not going to try to justify it. Here it is. The patent office granted it for me. So again, going back to the difficulty of patenting artificial intelligence is, let's say you have a deep neural network. Okay, you're going to have data that you're going to feed into a system, and the system, it goes through this algorithm, forward propagation, back propagation, the multiple layers and everything like that, and out is the on the other end is the output. Anything that goes in between, who knows what it is? I mean, there are ways to sort of figure out what the parameter adjustments are and so on and so forth, but it's really, really difficult. The patent office is going to say, okay, so you have these data, you don't know what the middle is, and here's the output. Patent office wants to know what the middle is before it grants you the patent. Well, how are you going to know? You can't. You don't. That's because the patent office has a policy, a public policy or a rule that says, if we're going to give you a patent on something, we need to know exactly how you did this. So that way, when your patent expires, another company, another individual can reproduce it. So they will give you a patent on a monopoly for you to block out the industry for 20 years. But at the expiration of that patent, they want to have your technology fully disclosed, including the black box of whatever forward propagation, back propagation that you have, including everything, so that others can use it after your patent expires. Others can use it and build upon it and improve it et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so there's this black box challenge that that is very, very difficult for the examiner, for the patent office to swallow and to grant you a patent. So the tricks of the trade in patenting AI, there are several. There is the categorizing the features of what you're looking for, could be one, right? If you can identify the features that you're fine tuning. Characterizing your data set could be one. And a lot of times, by the way, people keep the data set as a trade secret as well. And that's why there's this whole big hoopla about the unfair world, and Facebook has all the data, Google has all the data, and the small guy, little guys don't have much data. Well, to some extent it's true, but there's a lot of public databases out there these days. So it's actually becoming quite democratized. So you want to look at patenting the characteristics of your data, the input data, the features that you're looking at, and any of the raw algorithms and systems that you have set up for the data to run through, prior to data. For that, you can patent as well. And you can also connect your artificial intelligence systems with any other machineries that does the function. That's how you would enhance your chance to get a patent. And also, what I heard from the question was that you got your first patent application is being looked at, is under what I would guess is an office action. You're filing a second one. That's really good, because what you're doing is building a patent portfolio. And for any startup, you don't want just a single patent to go in. Investors are not going to like that very much, as compared to if you have a portfolio of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And the reason for that is that it's a bean count thing. Okay, the more the better, of course, but also in the practical world of enforcement. If, let's say, you have one patent and the bad guy infringes on it, and you're going to go after the bad guy with that one patent. Many things could happen to that one patent. It could be shot down, it could be invalidated, and so on and so forth. And if it's shot down and invalidated, that's it. That you don't have anything else to defend your technology, your world, your business. But if you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, the more you have, the more difficult it is for the bad guys to try to take down just the 1 to 2, 3 or 4. The more you have, the more likely that you're going to prevail on one of them. Not sure if I answer your questions completely, but if there's something that I've not yet answered for that audience question, please type back and let me know. Okay. All right. So if there's no other questions, I'm going to move on to the next discussion of patent. JJ, any other questions?
Yeah, 2 questions. What is the continuation? What is well, I guess you can talk about that when you're doing. What is a continuation patent? Should we take advantage of it? That's one question. The second question, which do you favor, provisional patents or the actual patent application with and without acceleration? Perhaps it's a question of when. So I guess you will be covering those while you're discussing the patents.
Yeah, it's a perfect segue. Everything is a perfect segue, because it's all the big ball of soup, salad bowl. So here we go. So keywords: continuation, provisionals, non-provisional, and so on and so forth. All right. It all comes down to where you are. Okay. The patent system has the provisional provision set up in order to accommodate startups. Basically, this is the typical run of a technology. But first of all, technologies always improve for yourself, for others. That's just how it is. You have a seed of an idea at the very beginning. Let's say today, next week, or even overnight, you're going to have some additional thoughts to improve on it, to make it even better. 6 months from now, you're still going to have some thoughts to make it better, and so on and so forth. But again, it begins to get less and less, and begins to solidify and consolidate into something that's final, eventually, somehow. So in the patent world, first to file is most important. First to file. It used to be in the United States, first to conceive. That's no longer the case. It's first to file. So, by the way, on the note of first to conceive, once upon a time, there was this thing called the poor man's patent, meaning that you write something, you mail it off to yourself, and you receive it. You don't open it. You prove that you thought of this way back when, you know? So that was useful for first to conceive. No longer the case. You can write as much as you want, mail as much as you want, receive as much as you want, and have it there. And when you open the envelope showing that you conceived of it 10 years ago, it makes no difference. Used to be, not anymore. So filing first is very important. But what do you file? I mean, what do you file? If you file something that is so premature, doesn't have any weight, doesn't have any meaning. So then what it comes down to is, are you ready to file? And so in our world, it's premature filing, too late to file, and Goldilocks right. Okay, too late. Let me talk about too late because that's easy. Too late is someone beat you to it. they file first. That's too late. It's gone. Second is you somehow have disclosed your invention, whether through an abstract, a publication, internet advertising, talking to a friend, talking to a neighbor, talking to another human being who's not under confidentiality agreement. And okay, talking to them is fine. In the United States, you have a 1 year grace period that once you publicly disclose, meaning that you show it to somebody, talk to somebody without a confidentiality agreement. If 1 year lapse and you haven't filed it, that's it. That's the end of the road. You can't file on it anymore. Okay, that's a 1 year grace period. In foreign jurisdictions, that's not so generous. Once in foreign jurisdictions, such as Europe, once you talk to somebody who's not under confidentiality agreement, the next day you cannot file it anymore. It's just that strict. Okay, so in the United States, you have a 1 year grace period. Okay, so that's too late, and you don't want that. And by the way, if you want to talk to somebody, if you want to consult with an engineer and so on and so forth, you can request that engineer to be under a confidentiality agreement, which would then not trigger that 1 year one year period. Okay, so that's too late. Too early. Well, let's give some examples of what's too early. Let's say I come up with the idea of landing on not Mars, but Venus, much more pleasant. And I say, I patent the idea of going to Venus. And so I submit that patent application to the patent office. Well, the patent office is coming back and asks me, how are you going to do it? I have no idea. Oh, well, you don't have an idea. We can't give the patent. That's basically what it is. Is when you submit a patent application for something, too early is when you have no idea how you're going to actually get there. It's just a goal, an aspiration, but not a fully disclosed set of mechanics or systems of how you can arrive at that aspiration or destination of the final invention. So that's too early. Okay, too early is when you're not sure how exactly you're going to do this, but that's kind of the vague idea of how you're going to get there. Too late, too early. So where do you know in the between that you're Goldilocks right? You're Goldilocks right when you have some sort of a means to do something. I would have a means to get to Venus, survive long enough, and the system that is going to provide oxygen and food and all that, right, to get there, and also the propelling power to get there and hopefully to get back. But anywho, to basically have enough technical disclosure of how to achieve at the functionality of your invention. So the Goldilocks, where do you determine that you're gonna? So let's say that you have some means, some mechanism, some way, some algorithm to achieve that. You said, okay, I'm ready to file. Okay, that's fine. You can file, but then, as you know, innovations improve, they're built upon, they change. So if you have the first iteration, V1, version 1, 3 months later, you might have version 2. The next day, you might have version 3, and so on and so forth. So now, when you file a patent application, you want it to cover the invention as you intend to commercialize it. So at the very beginning, it might be a very rough prototype, but as you fine tune it, you 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 would get more simplified, more elegant, more effective mechanisms to achieve the function of your invention. So what do you do? So you have one way to do it, but you don't have all the ways to do it, and you're pressured against the other aspect of things, which is early to file, right? So you achieve some mechanism of filing of making it work, but then again, if you file it today, it may not capture what your commercial version is a year from now. So that's where a decision has to be made. And so do you file a provision application or do you file a non-provisional application? We call it a draft, which is a provisional, or non-provisional, which is the formal application. At the early stage, we typically recommend that you file a provision application because you're still trying to get it to work, or you're trying to still optimize it. Right? So you file a provision application, which would allow you the 1 year runway to then grab all the ideas that you can relating to the original idea to clarify it further and then incorporate all of that in the final version and go forward with that non-provision application. Okay, so you have to eventually file a non-provisional anyways in order for the patent office to look at it. The patent office, nobody looks at the provision application. You file it, it gets placed on a shelf, it sits there. Nobody looks at it. Okay. The only time that the patent office looks at it is when you convert it or you file a non-provisional application. So now you see, you file a provisional application and you have a 1 year runway to file the non-provisional application. So, well, why not file a non-provisional application to begin with so that you can get an early jump on this? Well, you're not sure of this version is going to be the commercial version. So you want to give yourself a 1 year runway to improve everything and then go for the upgraded non-provisional, all the meanwhile maintaining the early provisional application date. Remember, early filing is everything. So that mechanism gives you a 1 year runway to grab everything, to clarify your invention, to maintain the early date, and still have that 1 year to formalize it. Okay. So there are other reasons as well, where even if you have all of your iterations, let's say you're 100% sure this version right here is the commercial version. It's so simple. This is how you do it. There's still a case to be made that you want to file a provision application, and the reason for that is it's cheaper. Government filing fees for provisional is about $130 an hour. Government filing fees for the non-provisional is about $1,000 per application. It's $130 per provision application. For the non-provision application is about $1,000. So if you're in a cash crunch, you may want to do this whole delay game to just pay the $130 and give yourself a year to meet up with investors and get that $1,000 to do the non-provisional. And also, it depends on your business strategy. If you're in a hurry, and it is always advantageous to have your application looked at early, but it costs money. And so if you want to play the delay game, just so that you can have time to get investors to pay for all of this, you can file your provisional, even if you're totally ready, you can file your provisional and then have the 1 year runway to get investors to pay for your non-provisional. The other advantage of filing a provisional is that the 20-year start date doesn't start from the date, the 20 years expiration date. Okay, patents are given 20 years, and when you file an application, if you file it as a provisional, that does not start your 20 years. Your 20 years starts from the date that you file your non-provisional. So effectively, kind of a way to play this game or game this the system is if you file a provisional, you have an early date, and then you have an extra year effectively, and then your 20 years starts to go from there. So it's not 20 anymore; it's 21 because you gain the early 1 year priority date here. Okay, so the priority date early in time. There are two implications of that. One is, well, if you file it first and someone files it later on the same invention, you win. You just win because you filed it first. Doesn't matter if they thought of it 10 years ago and you thought of it yesterday. You filed it first, you win. So that's one. Number two that is that during what's called examination or prosecution or negotiation with the patent office, when you file an application, a non-provisional one, and it goes in and the patent office begins to examine it, the first thing they do is they're going to do what's called a prior art search. And what prior art search is they're going to go through their database, whether it be a patent database, whether it be a website database, whether it be scientific literature database, anything is fair game for prior art. So let's say that today is November 14th, 2023. You file it November 14th, 2023. You lock in today's date as for your provisional. You lock in today's date as your early priority date. Because of that, the examiner cannot look at any prior art that comes in October, any prior art that comes in September, and so on and so forth. So the prior art, that the date of filing is very important to cut off the prior art for you. So if you file today and someone publicly discloses on the internet your idea, your invention tomorrow, because you filed today, the patent office cannot consider what was disclosed tomorrow or next week against the patentability of your invention. Okay, hope that makes sense. So I'll stop here briefly for questions, and then I'll talk about patentability in just a moment. All right, JJ, do we have any questions?
We do. One is, how much of changes can you make in a final application compared to a provisional application?
Sure. So I will tie that answer in with filing continuation as well, because I think that's the previous question. So how much changes can you make from a provisional to a non-provisional? Here it is, guys. This is the rule, and it's in law, there's really hardly ever a bright line rule for anything. It's not left of the line, right of the line. It's very much how much can you argue. Here's the rule. You get your early filing date as of the information that you disclose. So if you disclose AB in your provisional application, then you do the non-provisional application, and you add C or D or E or all the above. Okay. Well, the thing is, for the most part, patent examiners don't really review your provision application to see if you had actually disclosed the CDE part and decide that you actually have an earlier priority date. It's all about that disclosure at the very beginning. So when you disclose AB in the provisional, and in the non-provisional, you disclose AB, CDE. So 3 more. If the patent ever gets challenged, the first challenge is you're not entitled to the provisional early date because you didn't have the CDE. But the counter argument against that is always, my CDE is actually in the AB, first original disclosure. It's just that CDE is a clarification, fine-tuned idea is in AB. CDE over here should be entitled to the original filing date of AB because the CDE is nothing more than clarification. So if you can successfully make that argument, then you'd be entitled to the earlier priority date. If not, you'll just have the AB with the earlier priority date and the CDE with the priority date of the filing of the non-provisional application. That lends itself over to the discussion of continuations. Okay. Continuation, there are basically 2 types. There's the continuation, and then there's the continuation in part. All right. So let's say that you file an application. Examiners, just by way of background, Examiners are brilliant people. They are technically savvy and so on and so forth. The only thing is they're under a lot of pressure for time. I've spoken with enough examiners to basically get a feel that they have about 20 hours. They have about 20 hours to look at your invention. And all of those 20 hours would involve a prior art search, which would take a long time, and digesting your invention, reviewing your document, and so on and so forth. Okay, so then when you file an application, and in there you have a system, you have a method, you have, that happens a lot, a system to perform this, a method to perform that. Examiner's going to look at it and say, huh, you know what, I only have 24 hours. I'm sorry, I only have 20 hours to look at this. If the applicant has systems and methods and compositions and all that, that's a lot of work. I have to do a prior art search for composition, and I have to do a prior art work for systems. I have to do a prior art search for methods. That's too much. I'm going to require a restriction requirement. Applicants, pick one. Do you want the method to be examined now, or do you want the composition to be examined now? Do you want the system to be examined now, etc.? They're going to try to pare it down as much as possible so that their scope of work is more reasonable within the effectively 20 hours of work that they're allocated. So you can file whatever you want to file, but they're going to scope it down to just the one thing that is more package that fits within what you paid for. You pay for $1,000. You can't be, examiner's not going to look at everything. So then they're going to do what's called a restriction requirement, asking you to pick something. And let's say you pick the method as opposed to the system of something. So you go forward with a method and so on and so forth, and you get it allowed. It would say, wait a minute, what about my system? I picked the method. Do I forego my system? No, not really. Still there. So what you do is you file a continuation, which is kind of like a divisional. You file a continuation to capture that system that you didn't pursue with originally. Okay, to capture the system claim. So that's what continuations are all about. Is you pretty much just grab what you didn't grab before in a continuation filing. There's this thing called a continuation in part. A continuation in part effectively is what we were talking about in this whole provisional, non-provisional evolution of innovation. Let's say you file provisional. 1 year later, you formalize it into a non-provisional, and you pursue the non-provisional, thinking all along that it's going to be your commercial idea and stuff like that. But then you pivot, and you actually change something significantly. It's like, oh boy, what do I do now? My patent does not align with the commercial product that I today intend to actually go forward with because I just pivoted. What do you do? Well, you can file what's called a continuation in part, meaning that with the original disclosure that you have, whatever pivoting that you're going to do, that you're going to add on to it with new technologies and new twists and new stuff, new mechanism, you can add on to it. And that's the in part that you're adding on. So same analysis as before. Do you have the original filing date of the provisional, or do you have a new filing date of the continuation in part? And all of that comes down to, can you make the argument that what you have is a neighbors. So that comes down to a convincing argument whether or not you can actually say that your continuation, the in part, ties all the way back to the non-provisional, or even ties all the way back to the provisional. So if you can't, then the filing date that you have would be for the in part. But you always want to file a continuation in part, hoping that you can actually make an argument all the way back to the provisional. Okay, so I think I answered the question of the continuations and the continuation in parts. The other thing is this for consideration. Remember that when you file a patent application, the patent term is 20 years. Okay, it's 20 years. So if you file, if you get the early date, then you would avoid the prior art. Okay, you would avoid the prior art. However, when you avoid the prior art, what you gain on the front end by avoiding the prior art, you lose on the back end of the 20 years, meaning that your continuation in part will have the duration similar or the same as your original non-provisional application. So it's going to be truncated. So there are times when you don't want to file a continuation in part in hope that you can actually get a new filing date that then restart your 20 years that'll be later than your original 20 years. Because in the technology world, sometimes if a technology is foundational, every day could mean tens of millions of dollars. And so if you have if you have a longer patent term after your original term is expired, that adds to the valuation of your company. All right. Okay. I think I addressed the continuation question, continuation in part question. Any other questions along the lines of filing? Next, I'm going to touch on international filing. I think I have about 5 minutes, really.
Yes, that's correct. No questions.
Okay, all right. So let me touch on international filings of patents, and then briefly on FTOs, because everybody wants to know about FTO. All right. Um, International filing. We were saying earlier that patents are jurisdictional. When you file in the United States, you get patents protection. If you get it granted, it'll be in the United States only. If there's someone over in Canada that makes it, and if you don't have coverage in Canada, you can't do anything about it. So what you need to do is you want to look at two factors. One is, where is your marketplace going to be? Where are your buyers going to be for the most part? And you want to file in those jurisdictions. The second thing you want to look at is, where will you be manufacturing this? A lot of things are made out of China these days. And so, and that's changing, by the way. There's some dynamics going on there, lobbyist groups, so forth, to take it out of China. But let's say that your products are made in China, then you want to file there. So where you're going to be selling and where you're going to be making. Those are the two factors that you want to look at when you consider outside US filings. And when you file outside the US, there are two ways to file it. One is through a PCT, Patent Cooperation Treaty. You file that, and you effectively can elect countries all around the world who are members of PCT, making it easy. Very much like the Madrid Protocol that we talked about earlier for trademark. Or you can go through what's called a Paris Convention, in which you file straight in their country without going through this PCT thing. And for some countries that are important that you want to file a Paris Convention will be Taiwan and a few other countries. Taiwan is not a PCT member, and if you want Taiwan protections, patent protections in Taiwan, especially if you're in the cellular manufacturing business, making cell phones and selling electronics, Taiwan is a very important place to file, and they're not part of the PCT. So when you speak with your patent counsel, remember to talk beyond the PCT. Talk about Taiwan and other jurisdictions that are not part of the PCT community. Okay, so let me switch over to FTO just a bit. We've been talking about patentability of something. We haven't gone into we can go forever, but patentability is, when the technology is novel enough and non obvious enough and fully disclosed, you get your invention, and we talked about accelerated examination, all that stuff. FTO doesn't matter. When you hear the word FTO, it does not matter whether you yourself, your company, has a patent or not. It doesn't matter. Let's say you go patent free, no patent for you at all. You don't care. And you don't have any. But as you move forward, patent is still a consideration for freedom to operate, FTO, meaning that just because you don't have a patent, others could. And when you go to make your product, it's a possibility that when you manufacture something, you could be repeating a process or a system, or making a system that somebody else has a patent on. Patent trolls are everywhere. Apple's one of them. Google's another. And so the investors, when they invest in your company, they want to know if you have freedom to operate, meaning that when they put money into your company, are they putting money into your company for a litigation defense, or you really have freedom to operate? So that's what freedom to operate is all about. All right, my time is about up. I've got about 3 minutes. I'm going to leave it for open forum for anybody to ask any questions.
Okay, so we do have a question. It says, would you suggest filing several provisional patents versus one, i.e., several methods codependent on each other?
Absolutely. So this is the beauty of provisional applications. When you file a provisional, you have a 1 year runway to convert it to the non-provisional. Let's say that you file provisional number one, and then 3 months later, you have some sort of related idea or improvement idea, something like that. Just file provision number two, and provision number three, and provision number four. Just as many provisions as you can, or as needed. And at the 1 year anniversary, you can grab all of them and combine it into the single non-provisional, or you can grab two of them and convert those two related ones into a non-provisional, and the other three into a second non-provisional. Many ways to do this. Provisional filings do have their advantages. Do take advantage of them because they're cheap, they're flexible, and flexible being that you can combine it in whatever advantageous way that you can at the time of conversion.
Very cool.
Other questions?
That looks it could be multiple combinations of what you can do, unlimited combinations.
Unlimited. That's a lot of combinations. Yeah.
So we have a comment saying, JJ and Quan, I don't know what we do without you. So thanks, Quan, for all this great information. One last question here. And it is, when you file provisional, should you be focused, broad, or somewhere in the middle?
Love it. Love it. The answer for the 30 seconds that I have, all the above. Guys, this is really important. I've heard variations of this. Oh, you should be broad. Don't mention the specific, because the specifics are going to nail you down, and you don't want to be nailed down to the specifics. And then the other side of it is they're so specific and they don't have the broader picture. And I've seen those too. Now, the beautiful thing about the patent world is you can have your cake and eat it too. So what you want to do is you want to be broad in your concept. However, in order to maintain broadness of your concept, you have to have as many non-limiting examples as you can. They're called non-limiting examples. Just use that phrase. These are non-limiting examples, and list them out because they will help you, and be as broad as you can. Because you remember, we talked about the priority date that you get. Okay, if you have a provisional here, and then you file a non-provisional here, AB, and then A, B, C, D, E. Well, if you are listing out a lot of examples here, it could give you a case to argue that your C, D, E are entitled to the early date. So do everything. All the above is the answer.
Quan, thank you very much. So first of all, before anyone leaves, we have another one in about 15 minutes at 10:30 Pacific time. It's an expert panel with 4 individuals, also moderated by Quan. And then we have another webinar at 1 p.m. I'm sorry, at noon, 12 noon Pacific time. So please come back. You don't want to miss these webinars and expert panels. Quan, thank you very much. I guess I will not miss you for the next 14 minutes or so. I will see you in a few minutes.
Let me yes, just as a prelude, the guys, audience out there, the party continues in 15 minutes. Do your bio breaks and stuff like that. Come on back. You have experts in this domain, fantastic speakers at this afternoon. The corporate, it's very important in the startup world as well. You're gonna get a better, more beautiful, handsome version of me with more hair. That's my friend Ken August coming up this afternoon.
There you go.
Bye.
All right, Quan, thank you so much. That was so. It was so broad, and you talked about so many subjects. That was really amazing, actually. I keep learning every time I talk to you. I hear from you. So thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you in the next 15 minutes or so. Have a great break. Bye.